What's up, guys? We are back with another review, taking a look today at the first figure that I've managed to get a hold of in the new Hasbro Ghostbusters Plasma series line. I'm really looking forward to this just because it's Hasbro, so you know all this stuff is going to mesh really well with all their Legends and Star Wars and all that stuff. I'm not a huge Ghostbusters fan when it comes to toys. I've never really gone deep down that road. I love the movies, I love the cartoon, but I never really went heavy on the toys. I think that's probably going to change, and we're taking a look today at the Plasma series Winston Zeddemore figures. So we've got him here in a very Hasbro style box. It's done up in a motif that looks like one of their jumpsuits. So you've got him there in a big window, the Ghostbusters emblem down there along with his name patch, and then you've got some stylized artwork of all four Ghostbusters along the spine, and then the back of the box has a very Marvel Legends setup with a Build-A-Figure, a little bio, and then a lineup for this entire first wave. So let's do it. Let's pull him out and take a look. And here he is out of the package, our Winston Zeddemore Ghostbusters figure in the new Plasma series. So this guy is, of course, very much a sort of Marvel Legends style Ghostbuster. We're going into this kind of assuming that this is very much like what they've done with Power Rangers, where they are very much their own thing, but they kind of harken back to Legends, and then Legends are kind of playing off with a lot of that newer articulation that we saw in Power Rangers. And this guy is sort of in that same realm, but he does have some oddities when it comes to articulation, and the others are going to have the same things because they all share the same base body, really. So let's see what these guys can do, see how he moves around. So to start with, you've got a head that really can't look up. It doesn't really go up at all because it just sits on top of a ball and then hits that collar on the shirt immediately. He can look down a little bit, but only a little bit. This thing is very much fighting me to move it around. It's kind of weird. He's got a little bobble, and then he's got rotation, but it's basically just a head that is very much stuck on a neck that is basically as thick as the hole in the head itself. The arms go out at the sides. You've got swivel there. He does have a butterfly joint, and it works pretty well. The more I've played with it, the more it seems to help him cut across his chest than I thought it was going to. It certainly seems to kick backwards a lot better than it does kicking forward, but that's also saving a huge cut in the chest as well. So for aesthetics, you don't really have any issues there. You've got a bicep swivel, of course. You've got your double jointed elbows, which are pretty good. They get pretty decent range. He does have pads back here, so that kind of presents a problem. There's a thing that sits in the front there. You've got vertical hinges on both wrists, so up and down, and then rotation that is on both sides. Where things get kind of weird is really in the torso, because this guy is a single buck. There is no crunch, so to speak, as far as an actual ab crunch. He doesn't have a diaphragm cut. This is just like a ball peg that goes up into the torso, and he goes backwards a little bit and he goes forwards a little bit, and then you can fully rotate and you've got tilt side to side. So this is definitely kind of weird. It's certainly not in the same vein as like Power Rangers or what we've seen on newer Marvel Legends. That kind of articulation's not there. It's almost like they sort of did it, but then they didn't go the entire way, really. It's kind of weird. Granted, there is no breaking of the sculpt here, but at the same time, he can really only sort of bobble around. The legs go out pretty decently. You know, you're probably not going to see Winston doing splits or anything anyway. They kick forward all the way. They do kick backwards a good bit. And then you've got a thigh cut. We've, of course, got double jointed knees, and mine are really, really stiff, but it's new. And they are, you know, kind of cargo pants, so they're really chunky knees, but they are very much functional. And then you've got your rocker, and you've got hinges down at those ankles. Pretty standard stuff. There is surprisingly no boot cut on this guy, despite the fact that he is, of course, wearing boots. So he is interesting, is the best way to describe him. He has a lot of those telltale signs that Hasbro is going for with the newer style articulation that we've seen in Power Rangers, and then some newer Black Series, and then Overwatch, rest in peace again, and then it just sort of seems like they sort of didn't do that at the same time because of what is going on with this waist joint. It's just kind of weird. Now, as far as the overall look and feel, the aesthetics, I'm very much getting a classic Ghostbusters vibe out of this guy. Again, I'm not die-hard Ghostbusters, so if there's something wrong with his suit, I'm likely not going to be the guy that's going to say, hey, this little minute detail is wrong. But from a general perspective, I do think he looks pretty good. I will say that having had the chance to play around with him and compare him to other figures, there is something in regards to scaling that we're going to have to talk about, and we'll get to that here shortly. But he does look pretty good. These guys are definitely going to be sharing a lot of parts, which for the most part makes sense. You know, I don't know if there's any height variance against all of them, but I imagine we're going to see a lot of parts sharing, and they do look pretty good. There isn't a great deal of paint on this guy, though. They're going for kind of the bare bones look, like kind of fresh out of the firehouse, I suppose, look with him, because there's no wash or anything on the figure. He's just sort of that sort of khaki tan color, and then you've got the black for the gloves. You've got little gray stripes for the pads on the elbows, and then of course black on the backside. You've got the Tampoed logo on his shoulder, which is pretty crisp and clean. There's really no issues there. It's very nicely done. And then you've got his name patch, the Zeddemore patch there, which is done really good. Again, very clean and crisp, no issues. The belt is a floating piece, and it does swivel. It is of course attached to his pants. You've got the yellow tube that goes to the belt that attaches on the thigh. It doesn't really seem to get in the way, I mean, unless you're swiveling it way too far, but it really only goes one way. There is a peg hole here, which I believe is likely from part sharing, because all of the Ghostbusters come with unique accessories, so I'm assuming something pegs in there that Winston just doesn't come with, and maybe you could swap it between other figures. But then of course there are like, I guess that's like a walkie-talkie or something on his side there, with some other doodads on the belt. There's not a whole lot more to speak of. It's basically a guy in a tan jumpsuit with black shoes and black gloves, but it very much looks like a Ghostbuster. I mean, you couldn't show me that and try to say it was anything else. It very much looks like a classic movie Ghostbuster. The key thing for these figures, though, truly, at least, well, for me anyway, when it comes to being at least slightly more accurate than past releases, is the faces, the head sculpts, and of course the usage of photo printing. Of course, you know, it's Hasbro, so they're going to photo print everything they can. So, of course, movie-based Ghostbuster figures are going to get that treatment. And I think for the most part, this looks like a pretty faithful recreation of Ernie Hudson's face. At the same time, and it's the weirdest thing, I swear at certain times and certain angles, I see a little bit of Arsenio Hall in this head sculpt, which is really weird because he voiced Winston in the cartoon in Real Ghostbusters. So, I don't know, maybe I'm just trying to see what I want to see, but it does look pretty good. I like the mustache. The kind of smarmy expression on his face really works for that smile that Ernie Hudson has, and it just works. I think it's a really solid head sculpt. For me, this is the defining thing, the best aspect of this particular figure, just from a general sculpt and paint application, because it very much looks like him. Now, getting back to what I briefly touched on, scaling, and what I'm going to assume might be a big problem for a lot of folks. I have said a number of times that I don't really mix a lot of properties when it comes to my displays, or whenever I get around to making displays. So it's not a huge thing. I like to keep stuff kind of contained on my shelves. This guy, however, is interesting because I could have sworn that these were 6-inch figures. And when I had him in hand, just playing around with him before doing a review, he felt like a 6-inch figure. He certainly looked like one, and he's not. He's really not. This is him next to Wolverine in Marvel Legends. We all know that Marvel Legends skew a little bit big, but Wolverine is not a 6-inch figure. Here he is next to Snake Eyes, and Snake Eyes is huge by comparison. So there's definitely some interesting things going on. He's about 5.6 inches tall. This is really weird. I'm not too sure I know why. Here he is next to a 7-inch figure, and you can see things are getting pretty crazy now. Here he is next to a 3.75-inch figure, and you can see that this little shredder should not be way more than half of his height. So there's definitely some craziness going on in terms of scale. I think these guys are meant to be their own thing by the way it looks. They don't look like they're actually meant to be mixed with other properties. So, you know, your mileage may vary on that, but that's certainly what it seems. So here he is, you know, with another figure. So here he is with a 6-inch figure, a Black Series. So you've got Commander Bly there, and he's much taller when he should be quite the same size at least, because Ernie Hudson's not a small guy by any means. So we've definitely got some craziness going on when it comes to scaling. Again, it's not a huge deal for me. It's kind of a shock. It's kind of a surprise. You know, let me throw him up with Wolverine again, because this is the one that kind of threw me for a loop, is having Wolverine be the same size as somebody like that. That's definitely not the case. So they do seem to skew on the smaller side. Your mileage may vary on how much that bothers you or how easy it's going to be to put them into your display, but there it is. Now, potential controversial scale aside, this guy does have some pretty sweet accessories to talk about, but this is also an area where there are questions and likely going to be some concerns as well. So let's take a look and see what he comes with. Of course, of course, he comes with his proton pack and his neutrino wand. So this is a separate piece, obviously, I just put it on him, and it's got green straps, which is, very much accurate-ish. I think they should be maybe a little bit more faded, but this is, of course, molded plastic, so there you go. You just pop this little peg out, and it just kind of folds over top of him. There's really no issues putting it on or even taking it off, and there is a peg for the peg hole in his back. But you've got a tremendous amount of sculpt back here on the backside of the actual pack. So tons of exposed wires, various colors, grays, silvers, blues, reds. It looks really good. Again, I'm not the person that's going to say this doodad is in the wrong spot or Hasbro got it wrong. It very much looks like a proton pack to me, a relatively casual Ghostbusters fan. And you've got your wand here, which does peg into the top, and it's pretty standard. It's got the cord that runs from the back of the pack to the wand itself. You've got a place to grip it, and there is a few little silver accents. Pretty decent sculpt on it. I mean, it very much looks like it's supposed to. He can hold it pretty well, two-handedly or one-handedly. You just got to kind of line it up correctly, because of course this cord does want to kind of move with him, but at the same time he does hold it pretty well. So you've got a pretty solid accessory. I mean, this is the one key accessory for me. If he didn't have a proton pack, what would be the point in buying him? So you've got that, but then you've also got kind of his unique accessory, and this is what I mentioned, that things are a little bit different, because every figure in this wave, as far as the Ghostbusters are concerned, have their own thing. So one of them has a PKE meter, one of them has a trap, one of them comes with the goggles. Winston comes with the actual proton stream. This is such a weird accessory to have as a unique accessory. They don't all come with one. So it is a really fantastic looking effect. It very much gives me a Power Rangers Lightning Collection vibe with this particular blue plastic. The actual beam on the inside is a harder plastic. It's not rubbery. This is, of course, very movable, very bendy, so you can kind of position it around a little bit better. And you just pop it on and off of the actual the wand at the tip there. So this is a really cool accessory. I mean, I think this is my favorite one when it comes to the, I'm not going to call them bonus accessories, but the more unique accessories. So you've got, this big monster beam there, and then he does come with a Build-A-Figure piece, and since I don't know when I'm going to actually get around to building this dog, we do have a leg for the Terror Dog. You've got the, the front right, front right, it looks like the left from your perspective, and it's a pretty decent looking piece. It very much looks like a Marvel Legends Build-A-Figure style piece. It's a dog leg, monster dog leg, not a whole lot much more for me to show off there until I get around to building that. So yeah, I think there's probably a lot to take in for this particular figure. Honestly, more than I expected, because of the fact that there's just some weird stuff going on here. I think, personally, for my interests, that I'm going to have a pretty solid Ghostbusters crew by the time I'm done. Again, I like to keep my stuff very much contained, so these guys will go on a shelf together, doing their thing, and they'll look really good next to each other. The problem comes in for folks who want to mix lines, I think, because they definitely don't seem to be consistent with other Hasbro lines. He's smaller than Snake Eyes. He's the same size as Wolverine, and he's dwarfed by 7-inch figures, so your Build-A-Figures are definitely going to kind of tower over this guy. It is really weird to see such a small figure, relatively speaking, from Hasbro. It seems to be kind of out of left field. I really thought that he was going to be much, much bigger. Well, maybe not much, much bigger, but just bigger. I do think he comes with some pretty solid accessories. The proton pack and wand are really good. That beam is fantastic, but of course I'm gonna miss not having that with every single Ghostbuster. So I suppose for me this works pretty well, but I definitely wonder how many people are really going to be excited about this after seeing what I think are some limitations when it comes to this figure. So that's gonna do it for this look at the Ghostbusters Plasma Series Winston Zeddemore. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.